All right, so the more I think about these Steven Universe ongoing comics, the more I just want to read more of them. So, for the time being at least, no matter how far behind I am on other stuff or what else is on my schedule, I'm going to get one review of these things out a week. That said, today's review is of ongoing issue number 4. Again, these don't have individual titles. I will eventually stop saying that in every single review. And this one has Pearl on the cover, with Steven keeping to the theme of these covers having nothing to do with what's in the actual comics, but being very pretty looking. Like I reversed the image of this one for my video thumbnail, but like you can see it. It's very, very pretty. When I say that this cover has nothing to do with the contents of this comic, I can't mean that much more than I do in this case, because like Pearl's not even in this one. This one's about the Shorty Squad going to a Renaissance festival, which I'm all for that. And it's a Peridot episode, which you guys know how much I love Peridot. So this one was kind of a twofer for me. The aesthetic was fantastic, and it was Peridot character development. Nothing super grandiose or anything, and you kind of have to read into a little bit of it, like why she would be behaving this way and why she would need this bit of development. But I think it works overall very well, and it's just a fun issue of the comic. Like, they do all the Renaissance festival-y stuff. It made me want to be there. It was kind of like the community picnic at the end of the last one. It made me want to be there. But from the very start, Peridot is kind of in a bad mood because the people at the Renaissance Festival know Steven and Amethyst, since it seems like this is a thing they do pretty regularly when it's open, I would imagine, because those things are only open for like part of the year, right? But since they know them, they know they're not kids, but Peridot is small and acts kind of childish. So they think she's a kid. And people keep treating her like a kid throughout the entire thing. And Amethyst kind of antagonizing her in her very amethysty kind of way, I'm sure doesn't help. But she becomes more and more agitated as the day goes on. Agitated being the kind word for it. She only really gets excited for being there when the jousting competition starts, and really takes to this big burly Black Knight character from neighboring Ocean Town, or whatever it's called. That's what it's called, right? We had heard about this place several times in the show, but never really got to see much interaction with it or its people. So it's cool that it came into this here. And this Black Knight just keeps obliterating everybody, and Peridot gets more and more hyped. But then Onion comes out to joust against him as a volunteer, and of course Onion's a kid, and he's not trained. Like, modern for show jousting is relatively safe, but you still have to know what you're doing. So the Black Knight loses to him on purpose. Peridot gets mad about that, but then she thinks maybe being small actually helps you in jousting. Doesn't really make sense, but she gets excited about that because one of her hot buttons is that she's small, right? So she goes out there and also wins, but she wins by doing nothing and realizes that he's throwing these fights with these kids. And this is where you have to kind of read into her motivations a little bit. You have to read into why she's so mad. And I like this because, at least as far as I can tell, it stems from her insecurities about being small, as well as the sentiments of Homeworld making her think that larger gems are better. Everything from the perfect quartz soldier Jasper being so big and burly to them putting her in limb enhancers speaks to the fact that Homeworld treats larger gems as if they're superior. And it makes sense considering that the most superior gems, the diamonds, are all very large. Even Pink, who wasn't big by diamond standards, was still a very large gem. And so Peridot is excited by the idea of a combat scenario, and Peridot being a pretty aggressive character, right? Where being small seemingly gives you an advantage over someone large. And she feels insulted by the fact that she was taken easy on by this guy rather than given her due. So when she challenges him again and he surrenders outright, she gets really angry. She actually physically assaults him, not badly. She just like flicks his nose really hard. But it does get her thrown out. But in the process, and again, you have to read into a little bit why, but from what I gathered, in the process of being kicked out, she sees Onion behaving irresponsibly and childishly, but in the process, he shows like familiarity with her, Like he expects her not to tell anybody. Maybe the implication was supposed to be that he was like doing this to get revenge for them kicking her out or something, or for the way she was treated or something, and that's why he gave her the thumbs up. It's not entirely clear. But this does seem to get her to realize that she is behaving like a child. And she actually, for lack of a better term, mans up and apologizes. And matures a little bit. She doesn't tell anybody that Onion's about to let the goats out to stampede around the fair, and that's the closing panel of the comic. But, you know, any amount of progress is good. It was very funny, very cute. I liked it a lot. And this is something that the show didn't address with Peridot nearly as much as I feel like they should have. They didn't need to address it in as big a way, again, as they did the couple times that they did in the show. But just some, like, background acknowledgement that having to overcome these prejudices as part of her growth would have been nice, so seeing that in this comic is also really nice. More than anything, though, I love that these comics have allowed for the characters to do things that wouldn't really have been feasible for them to do in the show, because it would have involved designing whole new locations and creating whole new backgrounds that maybe they wouldn't have had the time to make and design on a weekly basis. Like, not literally, but you know what I mean. On the basis necessary for creating a weekly show. Hypothetically, not that Steven Universe ever really released weekly on a regular basis. You get what I'm saying, though. Because this is a comic, and they're able to do basically whatever they want with it, they don't have to worry about the same kinds of time constraints that you would see working on an animated show for television. They're able to put the characters into scenarios that we wouldn't have necessarily seen them in the show. Like, I can imagine an episode of the show where they went to a Renaissance Festival, but that would be an episode of the show that maybe replaced another episode of the show with new or interesting locations, and I wouldn't want that, right? It's the same reason I'm so mad at Say Uncle. While it has its positives, it's an episode that stole an opportunity for another episode to fill its slot. While I love this Renaissance Fair setting, I wouldn't want this episode to exist in place of one of the other episodes that we did get with a more interesting location. So these comics, they're really doing a great job of giving us a chance to see more of this world than we ever realistically could have in the show. Though I still think there are some Townie episodes that could have been swapped out for episodes that are a little closer to the ones we've gotten, a little closer to the stories we've gotten in these comics so far. The Townie episodes of these comics so far, the Townie episodes, quote unquote, have felt a step above the actual show so far, which is something. I don't know, I'm not trying to diss the show. The show has a lot of highs. Just because some of the Townie episodes are its low points doesn't mean that its highs aren't really freaking high. So don't feel like I'm dragging the show here. I'm just saying these comics are very good. They feel like the show, maybe not at its very best, but at its above averagest, if that makes sense. And that's definitely a good thing. All of that said, though, guys, if you have read the 4th issue of Steven Universe Ongoing, what do you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.